Welcome to Glass Houses, a Billy Joel podcast. I'm Michael Grosvenor.
And I'm Jack Fernino. Join us as we dig deep into Billy Joel's songs and history and what his music has meant to us. Billy Joel may not be the first artist that comes to mind when you think of MTV, but he was making music videos before the landmark cable channel got its start in 1981.
A close look at those videos reveals the progression of the medium as it became more popular, more stylized, and more important as the decade went on.
A handful of those videos were released on home video in 1986 as Billy Joel, the video album, Volumes 1 and 2.
The first volume features 10 videos covering songs from 1973's Piano Man through the Bridge album in 1986.
And they run the gamut from pre-MTV promotional videos and bare-bones performances of hit songs to surreal and conceptual visual reimaginings of Billy's music.
There's a lot to unpack as different directors put their stamp on various eras of Billy's music. We get behind-the-scenes glimpses of the musicians and close ratings of their performances, and different angles on classic songs. Join us as we dig deep into Billy Joel, the video album, Volume 1.
Talk about a trip down memory lane this episode. I mean, just about everything we do is a trip down memory lane. But watching the original Billy Joel videos ripped from VHS, no less, not on YouTube, is like the perfect distillation of my childhood in Brooklyn. I could see my old rug underneath me while it was playing.
I definitely couldn't have known then that 35 years later, I'd be sitting on a MacBook Pro, watching the, a rip of the videotape with, on my laptop.
Right.
But it was such a trip to watch it again in its original presentation. I have it in the other room, and I still have a video cassette player, a VCR, but I'm actually in the middle of a move, so everything's kind of torn apart right now. Plus, I'm not terribly confident that I couldn't play it without the machine eating it.
I have two things to say about that in general. First is, the big shout out to my Aunt Annie, who had a double VCR back in the 80s. So she rented these and taped them for me and gave them to me. So I had them and watched them. I think I've mentioned this before here, but by the time I was done, Billy and the band looked sunburned from the amount of times I played through that VHS tape every day. But funny enough, this week I had to go travel to Wilkes-Barre, about 2 hours north of Philadelphia and a little north of Allentown, little name check there. And so I got an Airbnb for the night, but me being the cheap, would have been a hobo in another life I was, I got the cheapest one available, which was pretty much like an SRO on the wrong side of town almost. So I was fine with it, but I was sitting there watching Sometimes a Fantasy, and I'm looking around and I'm like, I think I'm in the same room as the video.
It's funny you mentioned that, and we'll talk about it more when we get to the video. I always wondered because it really was believable. Like it was like some really crappy little postage stamp apartment. I wonder where they filmed that.
I had it like an almost studio when I was in college, and we fit an awful lot of film equipment in there once or twice. Like we recorded something on actual film, so like we had to bring the lights in and everything. So yeah, it's doable. You're gonna piss off your neighbors with all those lights in there. You don't realize how bright those lights are until you turn them off, because you get used to them real quick. And then you're like, wow, I got to turn on a lamp. And you're like, oh, all the lamps are also on. The giant megawatt, film lights are now off.
Now there's a lot more digital technology to brighten digital film and all that now, but historically you would really have to light things very heavily to get it to translate well on film.
And what's funny about that is you see a vestige of that in these videos, in that we're going to assume a lot of them were low budget, and so we're not lit that well. And it seems like they had just enough lights to get the point across, especially in the early ones.
Yeah, I thought that too. And these videos kind of hop around sequentially and as far as chronological order goes. But it is certainly interesting to see the production value shift between 52nd Street and the Bridge. It's going to be a lot of fun to go through that change in styles and production value, certainly.
With that in mind, let me give, as I always have, my thesis for this one. And that is, these videos really run the gamut of music video evolution through the mid to late 80s. What we see here are the beginnings, which were simple promo videos that weren't really meant for public consumption all the time. They were more behind the scenes promotional. I don't know who got them exactly, but it was more like, when you were promoting the album to maybe, what was it, like record stores or DJs and stuff, they would send these small promotional films.
Yeah.
So people would get an idea of the music, put faces to it, things like that.
It wasn't until the dawn of MTV in 1982 where there became a soon to be widely known platform for these things to finally be viewed publicly. Local channels would have music video shows that predated MTV or were around the same time. But as MTV started to take off, suddenly a lot of these old promotional videos found a brand new home.
So we see that beginning here. And then we see the next evolution of music videos. And I wish I remember where I read this, but someone had pointed out, it may have been Cinemassacre on YouTube. It was Todd in the Shadows, if you've ever watched his stuff on YouTube. He pointed out, I think it was him pointed out, the original music videos. And he was talking about Mickey by Tony Basil specifically, but that being indicative of bands like Devo and videos by, those kind of groups. They were pretty surreal. They were pretty experimental. They were pretty daring. They were really, pushing the edges of the medium. Billy Joel maybe didn't have the most experimental or the most high concept videos all the time, but you do see that coming through in some of them where, they weren't just promo videos, and then they were adventurous, but then you also see once that adventurism gets streamlined into what became the more conventional videos of, I think, the late 80s, where they really realized that they went from like high concept videos that were in the best situations complementing the music and adding a visual element to it that you just couldn't get obviously on a record, and just focusing on the artist as a character or as a product or as an image and something like that. And so we see that by the end of this collection, for better or worse. Just to go back for a moment, the song Mickey is a perfect example because it has nothing to do with cheerleaders, but Tony Basil was a choreographer and was a cheerleader in high school. So to make a distinct music video, she came up with a cheer routine. I forget if she wore the uniform from her high school, but she made up as a choreographer, made up this whole routine, and she made this iconic video. And, and this will come up in the Billy stuff, it was a gimmick, but it wasn't gimmicky because it was really well done.
Right.
It didn't detract from the music. It didn't take the place of good music. It was just it was a compliment to it. Weird things that Devo did. You had that weird music and now you had these weird videos going with them. And it was adding an extra dimension to it. And that's what some of the best Billy Joel videos from I think the early 80s did, until they did begin to become a little more formulaic, a little more image driven and things like that by the end.
Billy historically was never terribly comfortable with the medium. He did great on the videos that they did, but he's an audio guy and he's always gone out of his way to say that. So he was always nervous about trying to lay out an image for a song because he always wanted people to use their own imagination to come up with their own storyline with what they think the song means, yada, yada. With the dawn of music videos, as we would come to know them in the 80s, suddenly the visual and the audio was married. So many of these classic songs and classic videos, you can't think of the song without thinking of the video and vice versa.
And I don't think we ever got like that with Billy, but there are certainly some iconic videos.
And so this is going to bring us to the very first collection of Billy Joel music videos that was released commercially. Simultaneously, CBS Fox released the video album Volume 1 and Volume 2 to VHS and Laserdisc. And this was the first time that all of Billy Joel's videos from 1978 through 1986 were collected together in 2 VHS tapes.
So Volume 1 is 48 minutes long, features Piano Man, All for Lena, Tell Her About It, Honesty, Sometimes a Fantasy, The Night is Still Young, Pressure, My Life with the intro being Stiletto, Keeping the Faith, and A Matter of Trust.
And this came out in 1986. And in fact, I actually remember getting this for Christmas 1986. So this very VHS tape, the one I still have, was under my tree Christmas morning, 1986.
Minor spoiler for Volume 2. There's nothing from The Stranger on either of them, and every other album is represented, even technically Cold Spring Harbor.
Right, that is true. They never did any official release for The Stranger. There were several promo clips for Songs in the Attic, and that's where we're getting some of the Cold Spring Harbor, Street Life Serenade Love, and Turnstiles as well. And then, which we'll get into shortly, there's also a brand new video for Piano Man.
And as we go through the videos, we'll talk about who directed each one. Because in watching this critically as an adult, after just watching for pure enjoyment as a child, I started thinking about the very different styles we see, over the years, but also, in terms of direction for these videos. And I was curious as to, who directed these in terms of who directed more than one, who was responsible for which directions, which tones, things like that. And two notable names here are John Small and Steve Cohen. John Small partnered with Billy all the way back through The Hassles and Attila. And we know also went on to direct Last Play at Shea. He directed or produced a handful of the videos here.
And then Steve Cohen is credited on a number of these videos. Now, if you think back in the day on the Glass Houses album, he was credited as Dr. Lights. So Steve is Billy Joel's longtime lighting director. He has been with him since the mid-70s, at least. And so he goes a very, very long way back with Billy and has a big hand in several of these music videos.
With that in mind, let's jump in.
What was really fun about watching the original presentation is seeing the introduction, the outro, and the interstitials that cut between the music videos. It really took me back to wearing this tape out back in the day. So it was really fun to revisit it this way for the first time in a long time, honestly. The video opens with a red photo book, which mimics the cover art, and it will open to show the words Billy Joel, the video album, Volume 1, all in Billy's handwriting.
Talk about, bringing back our childhoods. Was I the only one that thought of Fairy Tale Theater with Shelley Long when that book popped up and opened?
Totally. Yep. I remember that. So after this, it cuts to 5 different stills of the Piano Man video and then zooms in on the center, which is the opening frame of the video. And that's when the first video starts.
Appropriately and somewhat ironically, this video is directed and produced by John Small, which I find interesting because, the song came out only a few years after John and Billy stopped working together musically. And of course, John Small's wife, Elizabeth, ended up going with Billy to California and they got married. And
right. She's
also referenced in the song. And at that point, depicted quite curiously.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I remember watching this video at the time. This one didn't really air on MTV, but this found quite a regular home on VH1 back when they played videos. I do remember watching this video, knowing enough about Billy's look over the years to know I'm like, this doesn't look right, because Piano Man is an older song, but this doesn't look like he looked, I couldn't quite piece it together, but I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Well, it turns out this video was filmed around 1985. So this was a brand new video for this set.
Do we know why? Was it just because Billy was riding another wave of popularity and it was a good way to harken back to that first hit?
Yeah, I think it was that. And I think it was this video album that was coming out and they wanted, to give probably a new spin on an old song that never saw a music video. And Piano Man arguably became one of his most classic songs from the early era of his career. So I think it was a combination of that. And it was a way to sprinkle that song in with MTV and VH1, to get some airplay of some of the old songs.
And as I'm saying it, I'm wondering, is this tying in also to Greatest Hits Volume 1 and 2?
I think so, because that would have come out in 1985. And that's the opening track off of it. That song is getting more and more visible around this time.
It was an odd yet successful mishmash of styles. The black and white immediately makes you think it's, somewhat old-timey. And there are elements of it that, could look like it was out of the 40s, could look like it was out of the 70s. But then there were times when you look at these wardrobes and you're like, this is clearly the 80s.
You mentioned it being in black and white. The video was actually filmed in color, but for some reason, the original release of it, they went with the black and white treatment of it. Later versions of it, and I think if you go into Billy's YouTube page, this version of Piano Man is in color.
Yeah, looking at it in color takes the timelessness away from it.
The black and white makes it feel like an old smoky piano bar. With it in color, it feels like a studio music video.
One thing I loved early on was that first shot of the old man. You know, the old man sitting next to me making love to his tonic and gin. I loved the first shot of him. I thought it was perfect. And then I thought the second one was too much. Like, they should have just shown him once from the side, and then they have to, like, show him again straight on. And I was like, I feel like we got the picture.
I think the other way maybe it could have been interesting would be to have a bigger master shot, and you just kind of see him kind of tucked away in the corner by himself. Like, not the focal point, but he's there.
Right. Makes him seem a little lonelier.
Yeah.
So the next question I have, well, sort of two and a half, we'll say. Who were Swayze Cooper and Danny Williams? Were they anyone of actual merit? Those are the people on the marquees that kind of go by.
Yeah, I wonder who that was.
Danny Williams is a singer born January 1942, died December 2005. South African-born British pop singer who earned the nickname Britain's Johnny Mathis. Doesn't say anything about him necessarily working in California or Vegas or anything, but that sort of fits. Yeah, Swayze Cooper doesn't show up anywhere. Who's at the piano when they come back from that on the second chorus when it's Sing Us a Song, You're the Piano Man? It looks like a cross between David Hasselhoff and Mark Rivera.
Where is it in the video?
Starts at 134, you see him from the back, and then 138, you see him.
Which guy are you referring to?
The guy behind the piano. He's wearing a white jacket and a blue shirt.
That's definitely not Mark. I don't know who that is.
No, it's a mystery. Like, I remember the first time seeing it, like, you always thought it was Mark Rivera for a half a second, because your eyes are adjusting, you're expecting it to be Billy, and then it's not. And then he vaguely resembles Mark Rivera, and then you're like, no, but that's not him either. We used to talk about this when we were kids. I'm like, why do they do it? I think my cousin was like, because it could have been anybody. That was the point. He wasn't Billy Joel yet. He could be like, this could be any guy working in a piano bar.
Right.
Singing this song. But it's funny because they don't continue that through line anywhere. It's not like you see this happen again and again with other people.
One thing, too, that's in the original black and white video that's not in the color one on YouTube. On the black and white video, you actually hear the crowd singing the chorus of Piano Man in several spots.
That's what one of many subtle changes that were made when they put these on YouTube or re-release them on DVD later. They cut out some scenes. Yeah, they went with alternate takes, and they cut out some of that background noise that went.
We'll touch on that as we go through some of the videos, but yeah, you'll see more of that, certainly.
Can I say, by the way, John at the Bar is a friend of mine. That was just perfect. It was such an affectionate sequence. Could have been played for laughs, and it almost was. But I mean, whoever that was, man, he just played it so well, and there's no other way to describe it. It was so genuine. Yeah, it was kind of touching in a way. It was a light moment, but he really did a great job with it. I really enjoyed that a lot this time around. I also thought it was funny that he talks about the waitress. Yeah, and then it cuts to his hands, and you can like clearly see the wedding ring. That was an interesting nod. They could have opted not to have him wear it. You know, they could have decided that no, the character you're singing about, even though we know it's you, but you know this character shouldn't be married. You know, from a filmmaking standpoint. Having the wedding ring on adds an extra element to the narrative that isn't explored anywhere else. And, you know, sometimes that can be done to great effect. This time it was like, there's no reason to have that. So they could have taken it out. But ironically, he wasn't married to Elizabeth by this point, right? He was married to Christy. Yeah, he had been married to Christy probably a year or so by then. Maybe that was the thing. It's like sort of a triple entendre going on there. Yeah. But yeah, so the waitress practicing politics is quite buxom in a very slinky outfit. And then later on, like twice, again, gratuitously, you have this little Fredo-looking owner like just staring at like both the waitress's breasts, like so pleased with himself. And it was like if you didn't get it the first time, they make a point of going back to him and he stares like even harder. He kind of looks like Groucho Marx. I can give you that. I'll give you a comedy as like Groucho meets Fredo sort of thing. Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
cigar kind of made me.
Yeah, the cigar and the mustache, definitely
Yeah.
late 70s, or late 60s Groucho for sure.
In the Bridge Tour book, there was an article and an advertisement for the video album Volume 1 and 2, Billy Joel, the video album. The images in Billy Joel's videos startle, provoke, and entertain, running the gamut from straight performance pieces and abstract conceptual videos to narrative stories. Whether it's the stylized performance of My Life or the wild surrealism of Pressure, there's always something in each video which consistently provides an extra dimension to Billy's song, an individualized visual interpretation that adds to, rather than detracts from, the music. The quality and diversity of these videos are on display with the release of Billy Joel the Video Album Volume 1, a 45-minute anthology of 10 clips from the Joel archives. The collection represents Billy's second home video cassette since the release of the smash hit concert piece, Live from Long Island, and includes 2 clips produced especially for the video album. Before the advent of MTV in the United States, music videos were in hot demand in Europe as a means of reaching beyond the confines of international radio. Working with CBS International, Billy Joel became one of the first American musicians to take music videos seriously when he produced the songs Honesty, My Life, and All for Later for release abroad, as another way of getting his music heard and expanding his audience. Filmed during the late 70s, these clips are excellent examples of early performance videos that contain the elements of energy and passion found in a Billy Joel concert. Simple in technique and straightforward in format, they reveal an artist just coming into contact with the power and potential of the nascent medium in an atmosphere of experimentation. It was characteristic, in fact, that All for Lena would be directed by Steve Cohen, Billy's longtime friend and lighting designer, who had never before directed a video. After similar productions, Billy decided to expand his approach to music videos by developing a visual concept for the music and adding the dimension of a narrative storyline. Perhaps his first conceptual video was Sometimes a Fantasy from the Glass Houses LP, also included here. Developed by writer Jeff Schock, who would collaborate on many subsequent Joel videos, the entire piece consisted of a phone conversation with a gorgeous blonde and was performed by Billy in a seedy hotel room. The video, at the time of its production, was considered controversial and risky, and it formed the bridge between Billy's early videos and the increasingly sophisticated productions to follow. It was also premiered on network television as a landmark event in the beginning of what would become known as the video revolution. The video for Pressure, from the critically acclaimed Nylon Curtain LP, became a model for the abstract video form and one of the most highly stylized music videos in existence. Directed by a young British director named Russell Mulcahy, whose earlier work for Ultravox Billy Joel had admired. The video featured Billy as a character in the video, lost in an overwhelming cascade of impressionistic images reflecting the anxieties of the lyrics. Completed in 1981, just as MTV was in its infancy, Pressure went on to become one of the longest-running heavy rotation pieces in the network's history. The video also helped launch him as one of the most prolific and visually innovative directors of music videos. The concert video, Live from Long Island, directed by Brooklyn-born Jay Dubin, eclipsed the critical success of Billy's The Nylon Curtain period. With the completion of An Innocent Man, Dubin was given his first opportunity to direct a music video with the LP's first single, Tell Her About It. More than anything else, the video, which took 5 days to shoot, was an exercise in high camp and fun, designed to reflect the innocent joy and spontaneity of the music. Billy's stylized performance as the frontman for a fictional 60s band, BJ and the Affordables, gives the video an unparalleled life of its own, aside from the high production values of the piece, cannily accurate recreation of the CBS variety show hosted by Ed Sullivan, played to perfection by Will Jordan. And, at the close, comedian Rodney Dangerfield, waiting to come on stage next, is left standing in the wings in favor of Patricia the Dancing Bear. Poor Rodney. Keeping the Faith, the last video from An Innocent Man, offered a style reminiscent of early MGM musicals, directed by the legendary Busby Berkeley. The elaborate production features Billy as a defendant on trial in a rock and roll court and contains comical bits and numerous energetic choreographed dance numbers, in addition to cameo appearances by Christy Brinkley and comedian Joe Piscopo. Directed by Howie Deutsch, who went on to direct the Molly Ringwald film Pretty in Pink, the video is a must for any rock and roll witness. The Night is Still Young is from the Greatest Hits album, released last year. The video was directed by noted commercial director Neil Tardillo and is unusual in that it features Billy in only a supporting role. But like Pressure, it's more of an abstract piece, a tapestry of surreal and romantic images. The first of the 2 new clips produced for the tape is Piano Man, the 1973 classic hit single that launched Billy's career. Shot in a Long Island bar, the piece evokes the Los Angeles piano bar called the Executive Lounge, made famous in the song. The poignant lyrics of the song, depicting the life and characters in the bar, come movingly and literally to life as Billy sings the song at the piano. The characters materialize before your eyes, and there he is, Davy, who's still in the Navy, his arms covered with tattoos. The most recently produced video included in the package is A Matter of Trust, the hard-driving hit single from the new album The Bridge. Veering away from the conceptual interpretation, Billy once again enlisted Russell Mulcahy for the director's role. Together, they decided on an honest approach that would leave the interpretation of the song open to the viewer's own imagination. Peace finds Billy and band mid-rehearsal on a hot summer's day, there in the basement of the now-defunct Electric Circus Disco in Manhattan. Billy stops the action for a moment to ask that the windows be open. Amid a breath of fresh air, Billy counts off the song again, and the amplified sounds of his voice blast into the street, catching the attention of local residents. A crowd of curious spectators assembles just outside, enjoying the sights and sounds of a new song and the band's fevered performance. On stage, the rehearsal was shot in a candid documentary style. Viewers may be surprised to see which instrument Billy plays. It's not the piano. The video album Volume 2 will be available later this year and will include other hit music videos like Uptown Girl, It's Still Rock and Roll to Me, Big Shot, and You May Be Right, among others. Until then, however, the mix of old and new hit music videos in Volume 1 promises to be the beginning of one of the more extensive collections of pop music videos available anywhere. And that was written by Hal Strickland. It says the 1 and 2 you've been waiting for, Billy Joel the video album. Home at last on VHS Hi-Fi and Beta Hi-Fi video cassette and Laserdisc video disc. $19.98 suggested retail price. So for Piano Man, we're jumping into the first single from the Glass Houses album, All for Lena. Interesting transition to go from Piano Man to All for Lena. I wonder what the choice was to sequence the videos in this way. It's just an interesting back and forth throughout.
I've often wondered about the rhyme or reason, and I've yet to come up with any decent theory about it. Yeah, I could see putting Piano Man first, sort of just because, but after that, they're not chronological. They're not thematically sequenced. They just sort of are.
We jump from 1973 to 1980 to 83 to 78, back to Glass Houses, greatest hits. Then, yeah, it's really all over the place here. And if it almost feels like they just took, wrote each video title on a scrap of paper, put it in a bowl, and just picked them out.
That brings us to the second video, All for Lena, which was directed by Steve Cohen and produced by Frank Management.
And the name Frank Management caught me a bit off guard because that was Frank Weber's company. In 1980, Elizabeth was still managing Billy. So it was just surprising to me that Frank's name was attached to this video.
Now, this one feels more like a promo video, and the album certainly came out before the advent of MTV. But it is interesting that while this one and Still Rock and Roll to Me from Volume 2 are these straight promo video style ones, Sometimes a Fantasy was clearly more narrative, more forward-thinking, more seemingly built for commercial consumption, for home watching.
And Volume 2 also had You May Be Right.
Sorry, yes. I knew I was forgetting one and I couldn't place it. I always thought that in this video and on the 45 record jacket for All for Lena and Sometimes a Fantasy, he kind of looks like Joan Jett between the coat and the hair. and the
Yeah.
scowl.
I could see that. That's funny.
So you know what's fun in this one and in the 52nd Street ones is watching to see who in the band is sort of clearly miming. Having done a few very, low budget and very simple music videos, it's sort of tricky to mime to it and not feel very self-conscious about it. I think Liberty does a great job because he's always so animated anyway that it's fine. But a lot of times you feel like Doug is either uncomfortable or just being a little goofy about it, like just being slightly silly, slightly flippant in his movements, like just really acknowledging that, like, yeah, they told me to move as if I'm really jamming to it.
Doug was a lot more animated in this clip than historically he would be on stage.
Not to disparage it, but there is some borderline goofy video effects going on here, which is, I mean, this is probably also the advent of video editing really, really coming into its own. I mean, obviously the technology had been there. The split screens with Billy in two spots at once, like the mirror image sort of things. Remembering at least my AV classes in high school in the 90s, like that was like, oh man, we can do cool stuff like this. Like, we used to do fade ins and fade outs and reverse the shot and all that kind of stuff.
It was like the tricks that you would do before you knew what you were doing.
Yeah, because you could, and you were like, well, this proves that it's not just me and my parents' camcorder, like putting something together. Like, look, I have video effects. Now, of course, we can do it all on our phone. So,
and as you get more seasoned, you learn, well, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right. In watching this again, I think what was great about it was revelatory in watching the synth solo, because it doesn't sound like the most complicated thing. It's very melodic. It sounds very natural. But you realize it's on par with like the solo in Angry Young Man, certainly, maybe even The Entertainer. When you watch his hands move, you realize not only how fast he's moving, but he's switching positions very quickly. It's not like his hand is in one basic spot and he's doing all the keys within reach. He has to keep shifting from section to section on the keyboard, which, yeah, I'm no pianist, but I have to imagine that's harder than staying in one position the whole time. When it gets to the end, just listening to it, it sounds as if he's just holding one note, like as he's playing the CP80 with his other hand.
Yeah.
But you realize that to get that sound, he's hitting more notes, and he's blending them. And the technique there, I'm going to say, is that he doesn't release one note until he's playing the other, so you don't hear the transition. But to make that make any sort of sense, or to,
it gives it that swell and modulation. Yeah.
Gives it the swell and modulation, but it's something you could only really do with a synth. That's the only place. Well, maybe with an organ, I should say, but certainly not a piano. It's a very different thing you're doing. By the way, I'm both being Italian and trying to like explain what I mean. So my hands are doing all these things, and I see Michael imitating me, and he's doing the same things. And I don't know if this is like a camaraderie thing, or am I funny to you? Am I a clown here to amuse you?
No, but you're right. It's totally the best way to describe it. And I don't think I could without using my hands.
Yeah. Go watch the video. You'll see what we mean.
Yeah. So I always crack up at the beginning of this video how Billy just essentially rises up.
Yeah.
He's like crouched down, behind the keyboards, and he just kind of rises up, and his eyes are just huge, staring at you.
Yeah. I guess it's, how else are you going to approach this when how old was he when Glass Houses came out? We're going to say what, 30?
30. Yeah.
30. Let me make myself clear. I love All for Land. It's a great song. You're already on just the audio medium of this, a 30-year-old man singing from the point of view of like a 16 or 17-year-old. So you're already like, not the poster child for this. Right. So like, what else can you do but like lean into it and like just make great googly eyes and, try to be as like angry as you can or whatever else. The conceptual video of this could have crashed and burned and been like super cringy if you wrote it literally.
Obviously they filmed these, 3 songs for the videos, but was this, also the rehearsal space where they rehearsing for the tour? Because it felt a little more than just filming a video. I mean, they legit had all their gear loaded in. Like they were in the middle of rehearsals and they just took a day out of the rehearsals to do these.
possibly, but I'm going to potentially put my foot in my mouth and say they weren't in position. They weren't in like stage position, nor were they in like a circle position where they could see each other. Like Billy was off to the left. Billy's, if you're looking at the stage, Billy's usually off to the right. And those guys are never in a line either. I mean, granted, like on stage, you have a lot more room, but...
Live, the band was in a line back then.
Okay.
And Billy, I think, was just repositioned so he could see them. That's my take.
In the video, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he could see everybody from the right as well.
We'll have to ask these guys one of these days if they remember these videos and what was the circumstances surrounding it. Here's also why I think it's rehearsal. There was also the Hammond organ there, and there's no Hammond organ on any of the 3 songs that they did the videos for.
Okay. And this was Steve Cohen's lighting studio anyway, right? So it's not even like it was...
Yeah, it was like I think it was like the warehouse he owned, I think.
That's what I mean. Like, it's not even like it was A&R Studios and maybe they had that in the room where they were recording sort of thing.
Right.
And we'll get to A&R a little later.
So there's something else worth noting, too, about the All for Lena video here. It is the first of many coming up here that feature a live vocal.
Which would go unheard for many years unless you had the original.
Ever since essentially the Essential video collection, they swapped out the audio tracks for just the straight album tracks. And that's, for a long time, that's what everyone knew. But originally, all of the Glass House's music videos had a live vocal. Billy was not a fan of lip syncing, but he ended up doing it for the other videos because they were not performance videos. You know, they were a lot of cuts in and out. But for all these videos here, you're hearing the backing track of the studio recording, the backing vocals, and Billy's lead vocal is live. And when I was actually chatting with John Jackson, Billy's new archivist, he had mentioned that the decision was made to do the vocals live. So it was actually Brad Lee who had to quick do mixes for these videos.
Oh, really?
Because they didn't have, the mixes weren't in existence until the decision was made to do these videos. So they had to quick run, 4 essentially instrumental mixes of these songs.
Which brings me to another point, was that I thought Doug's bass was more prominent in the mix for the video, which I enjoyed. Yeah.
Yeah, totally different mix.
Oh, as I'm watching this must be one of those Berenstain Bears situations, but no, he's not wearing the red jacket in this. He's just, I remember him just wearing the black shirt, and then I guess just thinking of, I must have conflated the 45 and this in my head because I was still thinking Joan Jett.
I think Still Rock and Roll to me, he might be wearing it. And okay. I know he's wearing like a brownish one, and you may be right.
On we move now to what could only be the one of the most opposite treatments of a song from the straight performance / promo style video of All for Lena is Tell Her About It, featuring the one, the only, the magnificent Rodney Dangerfield.
Radio camera 3 and take camera 3.
Well, thank you, Topo Gigio. And now, right here on our stage, BJ and the Affordables.
So good. On the heels of Easy Money.
Right? I never made that connection. I thought it was just a funny thing that they had him in there. Here's what I love about this video. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah, it's campy. But what's great about it is it just keeps escalating. It's just concept after concept after concept. And that makes it hilarious. You start off with, oh, it's the Ed Sullivan Show. Okay, that's a great concept. I could see this working for the whole video. And then it's not just the Ed Sullivan Show, but you're actually in the theater and you could see the video cameras. Okay, that's cool too. And now we see people watching it at home. Okay, that's cool too. And now Billy Joel's popping up everywhere. That's cool too. Now we're in a... And you go all the way to space. That's really what captured the joy of this album. And a song like Tell Her About It is just like it. They're just having fun. Billy was just having fun in the studio, and director Jay Dubin, you see how I just made that organic, is just having fun with this idea. And I guess George Small was too, because he produced them. I also snuck that one in.
And there's also a cameo in the video by one Jeff Schock.
Is there really?
Yeah, he's in the video in the control room.
Oh.
Talking to the woman. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny. This is another one too that like has this slight problem with an anachronism. I think in that the people in the bar look like they're dressed for the late 70s, early 80s.
The Ed Sullivan theater audience, I know we're all told to dress for the 50s and 60s because Mo, she was in the video. She was in the audience.
Yeah.
And so they were all instructed to certainly dress for that period. But yeah, when it gets to the additional, like the bar scenes, that looks like 1983.
Yeah, I mean, they had to do it on purpose, but it's just a funny little thing that they did. And of course, Rodney gets no respect at the end.
Perfect. Patrishka the Dancing Bear.
Which I didn't know was a Stravinsky piece until I was in college, and I was starting to get into that. And I was like, oh, Patrishka. I know Patrishka.
Not bad, not bad. Yeah. Thanks for warming them up for me.
That was Mr. William Joel. Now, right here on our stage, the fabulous, the wonderful, the fantastic Petrushka, the Dancing Bear.
If you search for tenderness, it isn't hard to find.
So now we take another sharp left into not only another promo style video, but also a ballad, and a pretty somber one at that.
Yeah, this one is Honesty from 52nd Street. And this one was filmed at A&R Recording, Phil Ramone's studio, and where the album was recorded. And Billy is essentially wearing the same thing he wore for the 52nd Street album photo shoot, which was done just downstairs on the street.
I mean, you wonder if like a bunch of these were just shot the same day or the same week, or, In this one too, I think Doug is really kind of mugging.
Yeah.
It's probably early enough that he's like, or any of them were like, well, I guess we got to pretend to play now, So he's just swaying a little more, just like if you kind of key into him, it looks like he's doing it on purpose, but not too unnatural. It looks like he's leaning into the absurdity of having to do it.
Where it's like, like a live concert performer in a big room, it's like you play a little bigger, so,
right.
They notice you, basically.
Yeah, not too much more to talk about, at least not visually. Just that this is one where the film is fairly dark, which is a shame because I'd love to get a better look at what the room looked like. The only other note I have here is that I think the orchestration on this is a little higher in the mix.
I noticed that as well.
I would imagine that to be a real Phil Ramone influence, given, recording people like Barbra Streisand and Sinatra. I think adding orchestra like that to a song would be, especially to a ballad, would be pretty natural to him.
We are getting into the first concept video, the one and only concept video from the Glass Houses album. It's Sometimes a Fantasy. Now, it's funny that this one completely sidesteps the phone sex angle. In doing so, it's more the usual Billy. We got a little bit of schlub Billy going on here, as I speak of from time to time. This is the Billy from Roberta, Totally, Roberta Billy.
It's a goofy-ass video, but it's surprisingly good visual storytelling. Especially that we know the song has nothing to do with the narrative that's being presented here. but it really works. You just sort of understand this idea that like he's got this thing for this girl that's out of his league. He's annoying her. You got Schlub Billy and you got Evil Billy, which is just freaking hilarious.
Billy. Yeah.
What'd you call him?
Biker Billy.
Biker Billy, yeah. But I love the idea that this character of Billy has like a bad side to him, and she's attracted to that. It's patently absurd that like, you know, Biker Billy picks up the phone and she looks worried for a second. I guess I won't dote on it too much, but it actually is a very accomplished and striking moment where you wonder if it's that she's suddenly turned on a little, that she sees as part of him she's never seen before, or if it's this sort of idea that like she's dismissed him because he is a schlub, but then the second she realizes that something might be wrong, she realizes she's into him because she realizes she's worried for some reason, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of male wish fulfillment, but good. We get our wish fulfillment, you know? Like,
Right?
it's one that if you took away the music, you'd still get the idea. Tell
Yeah.
her about it, but tell her about it wasn't a narrative. Tell her about it was just a series of things.
I didn't expect it because obviously the song, it's about phone sex, essentially. And like you said, they went a different route with the video. But what I like about it is how, you know, it kind of goes through this whole thing where he's telling her all this stuff on the phone and all this. And then as the song's wrapping up, it cuts to the phone still ringing and she's not even there. So it's
Yeah.
like, wow, this was all in his head the whole time.
Right.
I love that part of it.
Can we then picture this as the precursor to Uptown Girl, or at least the Uptown Girl video?
Oh, yeah.
His ship came in. That's what happened. He's the schlub.
And this is another live vocal as well, too.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense that it was live. They wouldn't just like add in the few differences.
I wonder, too, how far apart the two different Billies were filmed. Did they film the bearded Billy first, then he shaved, and then they did the other?
Not that this will answer that necessarily, but like when you watch the promo clip for Live from Long Island, he's all clean shaven at the concert, but then like he's clearly like off tour, taking a break, and he's bearded with the leather jacket. So like, you know, both Billies do exist.
And that was pretty typical where, you know, I mean, obviously Billy has now had a goatee, God, for 30 years he's had a goatee now, which is
Right.
crazy.
Yeah.
But prior to River of Dreams, most every tour, and aside from the nylon curtain photo shoot, Billy was clean shaven in as far as the public visual. But he historically would let his hair grow out a little bit, grow the beard when he wasn't on the road or, you know, doing photo shoots for albums and things like that.
So speaking of visual storytelling, we have The Night Is Still Young.
Yes.
And, you know, I remember when we did Greatest Hits Volume 1 and 2, we poked a little fun at this video, or at least had a bit of a chuckle at just how surreal
Got a
it
dolphin
was.
guy.
Yeah, I got a dolphin guy. Who doesn't have a dolphin guy? What do you got, a porpoise, you schlub?
Oh, yeah, we still have him from when we did the Pepsi commercial last week.
Do you have a dolphin? You heard me right. Call.
One 800 porpoise. What's that?
You idiot, this is a seal.
That's hilarious. Holy
Who are we
shit.
making like this is gonna be something like you, me, and like Mike Stutz is gonna kick out of. But we
Right.
just like edit in a seal clapping instead of the whale. Yeah.
And I was still young.
All right. So that being said, what I have to say about this is, I don't know what's going on, but I buy it. And again, watching it sort of closely and watching it, you know, older, it seems random, but I feel like what the director. Let me go find him now, and I'll leave this one in just to prove that I'm not that quick on it. Oh, by the way, yeah, Sometimes the Fantasy was directed by George Gomez.
Oh, yeah.
And produced by Frank Management. The Night Is Still Young, directed by Neil Tardio, Tardio, produced by John Small. I feel like the director settled in on a conflict and just expressed it different ways. I feel like its variations on a theme is really what we're seeing here. I like that free falling wedding thing into the play, you know. And
Yeah.
I remember being a kid and just really understanding that, like, you're taking, you know, that sort of leap of faith, and I understood that, like, yeah, he's somehow playing the part of being like a family man and being a parent because it's on stage, you know?
Right.
And that's what cuts to these moments where, like, you know, he's running and there's clearly a problem. You know, he's not fulfilling, you know, his marital, no, not his marital duties. I think that's something else. But you know what I'm saying? He's not living up to the commitment the way he wanted to. And,
Sure.
you know, what's interesting is that it's like, you know, we don't know why he's running, catch a pickup truck that won't stop, you know, but he is, you know what I mean? But it's that idea of like, now he's trying to catch up. And yeah, I think you had said that, like, sort of representing Billy, like, you know, you can make it, but, you know, things aren't going to slow down for you. You have to put the effort in, you know?
Right.
You know what I just thought of? It doesn't happen at the same time, but there is the line, I could see a time coming when I'm going to throw my suitcase out. And that's what he does. When they get married, they're like taking that leap, they're skydiving or whatever. I suddenly realized that I like the idea that he's only able to catch the truck once he risks losing his stuff. The only way he can actually make it on there is if he throws the suitcase first. Now, he could throw the suitcase and the truck could keep going, and now he lost all his stuff. The only way to get where he was going was to take the risk of losing it all.
To risk it.
And then he gets on. And I am not even on mushrooms tonight.
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 This video, too, felt much more cinematic.
Yeah.
And I liked it. It felt like a drama, like a really well-crafted drama. And I liked having Billy as supporting cast instead of starring role. The truck driver, he's the factory worker just walking amongst the group of guys from the factory. The stagehand and all of these different things. I liked seeing Billy in those roles as opposed to in a lit, nighttime setting playing the song. That would have been so obvious. I like the choices they had for him.
I like that idea at the beginning where like the person appears in the doorway and Billy looks up and he disappears. So it sort of seems to me that like it's that idea of like you can have a thought or you can have an inspiration, but how fleeting it can be. But having him in these roles speaks to the idea that like he's the one documenting it. You know what I mean? Like it's his fantasy or it's his meditation or his rumination and he's overseeing it, because it starts with him. He's either lonely or he's trying to write a song or some combination of the two. And he has this fleeting flash of inspiration and it disappears in the doorway once he looks at it, which is sort of like a meditation thing. Once you realize you're thinking about meditation, you're not meditating anymore, that kind of thing.
Right.
And so he's somehow able to immerse himself in this because he's not affecting the narrative all the time. Like, yeah, he's the truck driver, but he neither speeds up nor slows down. He's just there. He maintains, right. And he observes things, like, okay, I guess I'm a little wrong because he shows the kid how to hit middle C, but he was showing himself, we think.
Yeah.
I'm almost there.
Yeah.
I didn't go through all 4 years of film. I only did 2. So I don't have all the answers, you see.
It's funny too, that scene you're talking about with him, the flashlight shining at the door, it kind of reminded me of Songs in the Attic,
Ooh, I like that.
Where it's like Billy going up into the attic and looking for these old songs, looking for inspiration from the past or something.
So we continue the surrealism with Pressure, directed by Russell McKagee, produced by Jackie Adams, animation by Franklin Langeth. And the animation. Listen, go find the original because I don't even think it's on the Vivo. I don't think it's on the YouTube version.
It only exists on this original version.
Yeah, it's certainly not on the Essential DVD. Do you want to explain it for the youngins?
So the story goes, there was actually an animated series or something in development involving Billy. So this is something that was actually being produced in the early 80s. And for whatever reason, there's a million reasons why a project never comes to fruition. Well, from what I had heard, it never saw the light of day ultimately. And this little piece here that sets up Pressure was the sole survivor that anyone saw. Here's what the animation is. It's colored animation. It really captures Billy's as a songwriter and how songwriting has always tormented him. He's always said, I hate writing. I love having written. The piano is sometimes a beast with 88 teeth looking to bite my fingers off. And that's kind of what's going on here. He sits down at the piano with a sheet of music, starts playing, and all the notes and lines just start getting jumbled and just kind of go crazy. And so Billy, clearly frustrated, and the guy at the piano is definitely Billy.
But post nylon curtain Billy, by the hairdo.
It definitely looks an Innocent Man Billy. This could be another sign that this was developed maybe more into the mid 80s. Mm-hmm. And it's just something that kind of fit with Pressure. And so they kind of retrofit it.
Right.
Because I don't think this animation was done in 82 when the video was done.
No, they wouldn't have drawn Billy like that. They wouldn't have rendered him that way.
They didn't have the crystal ball to like see what he was going to look like when he started dating Christy Brinkley.
Yeah.
In frustration, Billy grabs the sheet, crumples it up, throws it to the wastebasket, and you see a couple notes fall off and hang themselves on the trash can. And as soon as that happens, the piano's teeth start to open up and it swallows him whole.
And so begins the video. And the only thing I don't like about the video is it says Billy Joel and Pressure at the beginning. Little on the nose, don't you think?
I didn't think that was necessary.
Watching this now and being a person who I would say over the last couple of years has made attempts to be as empathetic as possible, whether or not I succeed all the time is notwithstanding. My favorite moment is the scene where the kid is like rubbing his hind, like you figure he just got his ass kicked or something, and he looks and he sees the other kid trying to keep the water in the desk.
Yeah.
That was just like such a packed moment.
There was a lot going on there.
Yeah, well, my thought it was that's got to be the kid that was beating him up, and the kid that's getting beaten up just realizes that this kid's feeling it too. Because that kid is the one that's being like kind of tortured the whole time. He's dealing with the water. The water motif is great. He's dealing with the water the whole time. He's getting sucked through the maze and this and that. And when he realizes that the kid that's fricking with him is suffering the same way too, and that look of like realization and like acknowledgement was so, I don't know who that kid was, man, but he really, in those like 3 or 4 seconds, hit that nail on the head so well. It's another great example of visual storytelling where how much is packed into that with no backstory. You have this, 10-second maybe moment.
I think the scene that leads up to it is the game show.
It's All Your Life is Time magazine. And I love the fact that Billy's watching it at that point,
Yeah.
The other one is All Your Life is Channel 13 Sesame Street. But instead of like keying up that part, it keys up the part where he's an adult and saying All Your Life is Time magazine instead of Sesame Street.
And then when it cuts to Billy watching it on that big screen, and it shows Billy watching the kid, and then it kind of blends into him. So I'm like, is that Billy as a kid?
Right.
And then they cut to the old man. So then again, is that Billy as an old man?
That's the assumption, but that almost seems like a cop-out almost. I don't know how far down this rabbit hole I want to go. Like, because we know the song is essentially, and this is another example of one where, although it's more subtle, maybe not as subtle, whatever. It's another example of the video focusing on the theme that's not the theme of the music. So, whereas in Sometimes a Fantasy was a phone sex song, but they made it like this sort of schlub love story, Pressure was really about just trying to write a song, or trying to work under a deadline. The video blows it out to just all the anxiety and pressure in the world. But I sort of like that idea that, like, he's trying to write, and maybe he's experiencing all these things again. But I feel like the old man, if it's Billy, it's just the fear of having grown old without doing it, without accomplishing what he set out to do. Very specifically that Billy. Especially because you see the papers blowing by him, as if like that was the music he was supposed to write and just never could.
I'm looking through as well the game show segment that we were talking about, and it's kind of just funny reading the descriptions of the contestants. So the first one you have is Larry Faber, age 28, occupation, video sales, interests, films, sports, girls, good food. Marsha Hunt, age 32, and she looks a lot older than 32 from what I can tell. It's just the bigger hair and the big glasses. I think it makes you look older, but
yeah.
Marsha Hunt, age 32, occupation, registered nurse, interests, bowling, disco, gourmet cooking, yoga.
Yoga. I didn't know they had yoga back then. I thought that was like a 2000s thing.
Well, doesn't he mention it in A Room of Our Own?
You're right. He does.
You've got yoga, honey.
I've got beer.
I've got beer.
That's a good catch. I like it.
And then we have the third contestant, which is William Joel, age 29, occupation, computer software, interests, fast bikes, cooking, water sports, satellite. It cuts before, I assume there's a word after satellite, but it cuts to the next scene before you see it.
After that, we get a nice schlot of schlub Billy, like, hey, I won. He's all awkward. He doesn't know what to do with himself. So did he win spiritual realization? Is that what happens? And tell him what you
That's
won.
what it seems to.
And he wins empathy, is that what it is?
Right.
Pressure's a song that's grown on me. I always liked it as a kid, and then I went through a phase where I thought it was goofy, and then I got older. I'm like, nah, this is pretty well written. Same thing, I thought the video was creepy when I was a kid, and then I figured it was goofy, and now I'm like, no, this is well done.
The scenes of him watching the screen, it's supposed to look like he's tied to the chair, but he's not.
Oh.
Because his arms are barely moving.
He's convulsing or something.
But he's clearly free. Like, he's not tied down by any means.
You know what I just thought of? My kids around. Hold on. Nah. When you smoke weed and you get the paranoids.
Yeah.
Isn't that what it feels like? Like you got to watch you have to review every stupid thing you've done. Like, this is, nope. Here comes that dumb thing I did in 8th grade on display for you again.
Flashes of his life mixed in with 1984.
Yeah.
But yeah, this video certainly has so much going on, clearly. And we didn't even touch on everything just because it's just so jam-packed.
It's going to be dancing about architecture if we try to explain everything. I dig it.
Same, man.
Yeah.
Next, we're going to be going back into 52nd Street territory with Stiletto and My Life. Kind of a little mini movie to start. You hear the intro to a Stiletto, and you see a very classic, gritty New York City street, which is the perfect atmosphere for Stiletto.
Fantastic segue. It's the frickin' Sharks and the Jets over here. Well, Michael can see, but I'm doing the snaps, the forward dancey snaps,
Like you're trying to do a yo-yo,
Yeah, exactly. And then they go down in the subway and they come out and it's My Life, and now they're in suits, which is great because, My Life is definitely more of an MOR song.
100%.
And now they're dressed for it. We get a little more schlub Billy at the Hey Guys wait up for no good reason.
Touching back a little bit more again on the Stiletto part of it. And it definitely, has that gang feel, like you said. It starts with Billy, just, in the corner of a basketball court. There's Billy and Liberty not far from him. And then they cut to Doug, who's, I think, got like a toothpick in his mouth and got the sunglasses on. And then Billy and Liberty start walking. Doug joins up with them. As they start walking down the street, Richie's sitting on the stoop. They pick him up. And then, it's like the band walking together. And then they venture down into the train. Like you said, that's when it kind of cuts over to My Life as they're walking into A&R Studios, all cleaned up.
And it was funny. I didn't understand when I was a kid that they were sitting down and listening to the mix. I was like, what is he, in a movie theater? Like,
What I like in that scene, too, is, Billy's pretending to look, they're listening, he's pretending to look into the live room. And so, what's going on in there? They cut off half the intro. It just kind of fades in midway through the intro of My Life. Like we said, they go into the control room of A&R Recording, and this is where we see Phil Ramone for the first time, and everyone sits down. And one thing I like, this part felt totally casual. Yeah, it's Steve Kahn, the guitar player, on the phone to somebody, and then you had Liberty there just eating an apple, totally random.
I mean, Liberty in this is great. He's just like, he's got this real mugging look on him in the park. There's something about this scene, and I don't know what it is. It reminds me of The Godfather. I really feel like he's channeling a young Al Pacino somehow.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the short, cherubic sort of guy surrounded by the toughs. Yeah. But he's really the mastermind behind it. I'm going to go with that. I like that idea. And the fact that, he's looking in on himself playing. I realized it's a motif among these videos and across the directors. How often in these videos is Billy looking at himself? Sometimes a fantasy.
Pressure.
Now I can't remember. I guess technically Tell Her About It because he's on TV.
Right. The longest time. Night is Still Young. I mean, I wouldn't even. Yep. Yeah, I mean, we can even leave out Longest Time because it's not on this one. So now we're getting back into An Innocent Man with Keeping the Faith.
We track the progression from late 70s promo videos, not really meant for like home viewing and commercial use or retail use, I should say, to the high concept videos of, let's say, the early 80s. Now we're getting into like they figured it out. And the last two videos are fun, but nowhere near as good as some of the earlier concept videos. Like Keeping the Faith, to me, tries to be Tell Her About It, doesn't make it. It's too labored. It's too, oh, now we know what music videos are supposed to be, and we can do this whole image thing, and we're going to do it. It doesn't seem nearly as fun. It's really kind of high on its own farts a little. By the way, My Life was directed by Steve Cohen, produced by Michael Nagrin, and then Keeping the Faith is directed by Howie Deutsch and produced by John Small.
And what's interesting, on the video album box, it's stylized as Keepin' with the apostrophe, Keepin' the Faith, instead of Keeping the Faith.
Right, but at the end in the credits, the G is back.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the box has it written differently. It was kind of funny.
We're standing on the steps of Music Court. Inside, the Billy Joel trial still continues. Throughout today's proceedings, the defense has maintained its silent plea. The question remains, is Joel innocent? Is he keeping the faith?
Order! Now, you sit down and you be quiet. That's no way to be dressed in the courtroom. Now, I want those doors closed, and I want them kept closed. And I want it quiet in here. Now, the prosecution has presented its case. And throughout these proceedings, Mr. Joel, you have not uttered one word in your defense. May I remind you, sir, you're on trial? Haven't you anything to say to the court?
Well, Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to try a little different approach.
Perhaps, Mr. Joel, you should approach the bench. Son, it's now or never.
You know, Judge, they say justice is blind. I sure hope it ain't deaf.
It's not surreal. It's just,
right.
It's like art by addition. It's like, oh, let's throw Jimi Hendrix in there. Oh, let's throw the Supremes in there. Oh, let's come up with a goofy concept. But it doesn't even scan. When I said, there's an unspoken conflict of some sort in The Night Is Still Young, and I said there's a reason why the woman in Sometimes a Fantasy has a change of heart when Biker Billy picks up the phone. Even though we don't know exactly what it is, we buy it. We take it on faith. You know what I mean? You're either taking it on faith. I know. I heard myself, but I'm gonna wrap it up. Don't walk away now.
Okay. Continue.
We take it on faith that there's a good reason behind it, and also it's well crafted enough that you can project your own feelings and perceptions and experiences on it. Ironically, then, when we get to Keeping the Faith, I don't have that faith in this one. I can't tell why he's on trial. There's no good reason, nor is there a reason why this song in particular gets him off trial. I could make some stretch about how the critics give him shit, but I just don't buy that. It's just
there's no reason why he's there.
Right. And I understand it's a silly video, but, when it's compared to ones that worked a lot better, I'm sorry, dude, come up with something.
Right.
He's on trial. Why? I don't know. It's
he's
80s.
Acquitted? Have you ever seen a judge's bench with a jukebox slot?
Where did he get the quarter?
And the judge was so surprised that it started playing music.
Right. It's a jukebox, sir.
Where did Billy get that giant coin?
And objection. Why is Joe Piscopo in there at the end?
And I've seen a lot of people post, he's not credited for it, but a lot of people are saying that that's Richard Pryor at the beginning. I'm like, why wouldn't they give Richard Pryor a speaking role? People are saying Richard Pryor's the one getting his shoe shined in the beginning.
What? Hold on. This is the only disadvantage of not looking at these on deep. Oh, I never even realized you saw his face. That's so funny. Hold on. Let me watch it in sort of, talk about misdirection. You always focus on the newspaper and then the camera moves and you focus on the woman doing the broadcast. News reporter. And I never even noticed the person's face that's reading the paper.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think that's him?
What year would this have been? 1984, 1985?
84.
Oh, let's see what he looked like back then. Trying to think if the mustache. It's the mustache. Let me see. Yeah, the mustache is big enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see here. Well, IMDb. Okay. I mean, anything that's even remotely official, like IMDb has him listed as man reading newspaper. We all know we can't trust Wikipedia, but I want to see if I can find the reference to it.
Yeah.
80sexchange.com. mentions it. I mean, I'm going to go with yeah. Maybe it was just one of those things. I mean, why I give a speaking role. Ringo's in the next one. He doesn't say a thing.
Right.
I think that makes more sense than Joe Piscopo mugging at the end.
I know. Keep the faith, kid.
Keep the faith, kid. Hey. Yeah. Yeah. I'll say it's him. Makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did get a little bit of a kick out of the scene in the video where Billy is recreating the cover.
Oh, yeah. That was a nice touch.
Yeah.
I'll say that. So this brings us to the matter of trust.
Your amp's only on 10.
First 2 chords are open fifths, second 2 chords are open fifths. Keep the same chords. Okay, girls. Matter of trust. Your amp's only on 10. Does it have we have an 11 button? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's too hot in here. Wait, it's too hot. Can you guys open the windows? 1, 2, 1, 2.
That's how the whole thing starts. You hear somebody, they kind of get closer into the studio space, and you can hear somebody off camera just say, hey, your amp's only on 10.
Yeah, I got a minor kick out of this as a kid, but I don't know. I guess it's iconic in its way, but
I like it. I think the concept of like people like, they in that article, they claim to say that it was organic, that these people just heard the music and showed up. But that part seems a little cheesy, but I do like the band just playing. I do dig that.
I like the band just playing. You know what? It's the same problem with Keeping the Faith. It doesn't answer the question why.
Yeah.
Why this song? There were opportunities to somehow tell a story in the crowd or through the crowd, but it doesn't. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so much
Except you get a woman with a rat.
Yeah, well, that was like the only part that you could sort of like, do this thing because she looked like so defensive and like somebody that like, is trying not to be approachable, which is sort of what the song, scratches at in its way.
Yeah.
There's just no reason for that to happen on this. It's not a freaking Whitesnake song, like it's not, stroking David Coverdale's ego that like, girls are going to show up and start whipping their hair around on the Camaro. It's interesting that they end on Keeping the Faith and Matter of Trust, the ones where all the adventurism of the early 80s music videos has been stripped away and streamlined into sort of like empty artifice, It's like it's like empty iconography. It's just like, okay, let's do those things. Those things were like things in the videos that worked, but they're no longer telling stories. They're just taking like random stuffs and not leaving a narrative.
Though on another hand, I think making it just be a performance video made it a little less dated than it probably otherwise would have been for a video from 1986.
For a guy that doesn't want to do videos, it's the most egotistical video he'd made. This idea that the entire city is going to stop and listen to him is so big-headed. And I don't think it was his idea. I don't think he was like, all right, guys, this is what we're doing now. My music is so important. Clearly somebody came up with this concept. But, even...
speaking of, it's the same director as, I think, the Pressure video, no?
Well, that is disappointing. Let me see. By the way, we forgot to mention it's surprises at the beginning. That's sort of the
which
Russell
is an interesting
Mulcahy.
choice.
Mulcahy again. This time produced by Paul Flattery. That sucks. Wonder what happened to him.
Wow.
Take that back because I bet you it was somebody else's doing. I'll say major bummer. Major bummer that they came up with this. I think there was a lot more they could have done with it.
Yeah, fair enough. I know, I still like it because of its simplicity.
It's simplistic, and I like the fact that it looks like that. It actually does look like they're just jamming. It's fun to see the band just do it. Liberty's like doing this thing where he's like throwing his sticks on the ground and then bouncing up. He looks all pissed off for some reason,
I like that little 5-piece kid he's playing there. That red Tama. Sitting behind him is a few different people. One of them is Liberty's ex-wife, Mary. She's sitting behind him on the couch. And I know Christie's and Alexa were there.
That was a nice cameo with them.
The one thing too with this one, if you notice, Billy's obviously playing a guitar in here, And on the bridge tour, when he did play a guitar, he had a Telecaster, Fender Telecaster. In this video, he's playing a Les Paul. The Les Paul was David Brown's guitar. I had heard the story. I don't know if this is 100% true or not, but the story I had heard was a comment was made that him, like, setting up to do the video, the visual of him with the short sleeve kind of denim-y shirt and the telly made him look a little too Bruce Springsteen-y.
Especially at that point.
So Billy and David swapped guitars. David Brown's playing a telly in the video.
Right. That's pretty funny.
The continuity thing, I can always tell different takes. Some of the takes were with Billy's voice. He is, the vocal mic is straight up other times, and then they'll cut back and it'll be angled. Then they'll cut back and it'll be straight up.
Definitely a low note to end on, but I'll say that I did love this video as a kid. This is the one that really didn't hold up as an adult. Some of these other ones I really enjoyed, not only for the nostalgia factor, but just getting a little more out of it. I mean, none of it's high art, certainly, but there was some creativity. There's some interesting things going on there.
There's only an 8-year span of these videos, 78 to 86. That's it. So it's amazing how, the styles changed and everything changed so much in that time frame.
That is an excellent point, and that is a perfect conclusion to our wow. We have been at this for a while. I don't know what this is going to get edited down to, but officially, we're at 2 hours, 15 minutes.
Talking about a 48-minute videotape.
We're going to take a breather, and we're going to let you guys tell us what you think. What was your favorite video on Volume 1? No cheating. No going to Volume 2. Look it up if you have to. Tell us your favorite ones on Volume 1. Tell us what you loved about them. And hey, if you're like us and you haven't watched these in 30 years, I mean, we've seen them, but you haven't watched them in earnest in years and years and years. What do you notice now that you didn't notice before? What things pop out to you? What things resonate for you? glasshousespodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Glass House is a Billy Joel podcast. And when you're done your trip down memory lane, come meet us back in the present with a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple Podcasts, if that's where you're listening to us. Every 5-star review and positive rating tells the almighty algorithm that we are a podcast of merit, and so it should serve us up to more and more listeners. It's a great, easy, fun, and free way to help build the community.
Absolutely. And just a refresher, here's the 10 songs you're going to want to check out. And actually, I think I might try to put together a YouTube playlist of the videos so you can at least watch them in sequential order easier. But if you can get a hold of a VHS, a beta, or even a Laserdisc, that's definitely the experience that is best, in my opinion, because that's in its original form and it definitely gives it a different flavor. But the 10 videos, again, are Piano Man, All for Lena, Tell Her About It, Honesty, Sometimes a Fantasy, The Night is Still Young, Pressure, Stiletto Into My Life, Keeping the Faith, and A Matter of Trust.
Yep. And I don't know, what do we do? Do we go with a Rodney Dangerfield thing, or do we do Turn It Down to end?
Shut up.
Shut up. That was it, yeah.
And now the wonderful, the fantastic, yeah.
Patricia.